In 42 games, the Florida Panthers have just 9 regulation losses, and 2 of those are to the Seattle Kraken. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where the Seattle Kraken have swept the 2 games that they will play against the Florida Panthers in their first season. A Florida Panthers team, by the way, who halfway through the year has the best record in the entire NHL. Way back in November, the Kraken beat the Panthers 4-1 in Florida, becoming the first team to beat the Panthers at home this season, and are still just one of 3 teams in 24 home games for the Panthers that have managed to do so. And then today, they finish off the season sweep with a 5-3 win over the Florida Panthers in Seattle. And honestly, it's a win that reminds me a lot of that first meeting back in November between these 2 teams, as the Kraken very well could have ended up winning this one 5-1 if it weren't for a couple of lucky bounces that end up in the Kraken net. Before we get into the game, lineup-wise for the Kraken, still no Jamie Alexiak, as his illness that was not COVID-related has now turned into a lower body injury, and he's still day-to-day, and at this point, we'll just have to see when he can come back. So playing for him would be Hayden Fleury, and then Lauzon comes in instead of Borgen. Meanwhile, on the forward end, still some mixing and matching of lines going on here. Carson Kuhlman gets his second start for Seattle since coming over from Boston, and Jonas Donskoy gets his first night off of the season, as he had been just one of 3 players to play all 40 games to this point. The other 2 being Larson and Wemberg, who still do play in this game. For Donskoy, hopefully this can get him out of this goalless rut that he has been riding through the first half of the season. Getting into the game, right out of the gates, the Panthers do control play early with a few scoring chances that won't go, and then Seattle is able to press right back with a few chances of their own, including one from Larson that goes out of the post and stays out, as we remain scoreless through the first few minutes of the game. And it is clear from very early on that this game is going to be a lot like that first game between these 2 teams back in Florida in November, in the sense that it's pretty north and south, fast-paced with lots of offense and chances on goal at both ends of the ice. And it is a play style that Florida, being one of the best offensive teams in the NHL to this point in the season, does like to play, and it ends up paying off for them early on, as a declare shot is saved by Grubauer with a nice toe save, but the rebound goes right back out front and ends up unfortunately being kicked in off of Soucy's skate. And really, for Grubauer, there's not a whole lot more he could have done about this one. Ultimately, it's just a lucky break for the Panthers in a game that, up until this point, Seattle had been getting the better of the opportunities in. And for the Kraken, well, this is pretty much just how the season has gone. A puck finds its way into the Kraken net one way or another, and they find themselves down early. And even more unfortunately, that wouldn't be the end of the bad luck for Soucy, as just a couple minutes later, he would go into the boards awkwardly, would be slow to get up, and wouldn't end up returning to the game. Eventually, they would report that it's a lower body injury for him, and for the Kraken, they are down to 5 defensemen for the rest of this one, again against one of the most high-powered offensive teams that the league has to offer. But as Johnny Lawrence would say, the best defense is more offense. Sorry, I've been watching a little too much Cobra Kai lately. But as the first period goes on, the Kraken are able to continue to keep the Panthers on their heels, getting the better of the scoring opportunities at the other end of the ice. And while it doesn't end up leading to a goal, in the back half of the first, it does lead to a power play for the Kraken. All this first power play ends up doing, though, is slowing down the momentum that the Kraken had been building up to this point, as they really have a hard time getting anything going on it, having a hard time getting set up in the offensive zone, eventually creating one scoring opportunity for Geeky, but they had been looking better 5-on-5 than on this power play. And as we get back to 5-on-5 with the power play killed off, the Kraken get that pressure back and put the Panthers right back on their heels, eventually getting another power play in their favor. This one does get a very good scoring chance as Eberle puts one off the post early on, but it peters out towards the end, and a second Kraken power play is killed off by Florida. And eventually, after a late push by the Panthers also comes up empty, we do get to the end of a first period that the Kraken, in a lot of ways, have dominated, and for most of it looked like the better team. But on the scoreboard, it's a different story where the Panthers still have a 1-0 lead. And for Seattle, again, this has pretty much been the story of their season, where in a lot of ways they've looked like the better team in a lot of their games, but on the scoreboard have come up on the other side of it. The Kraken come out looking strong again in the second period, aided by a couple early saves from Grubauer. A 2-on-1 chance the other way, Appleton's pass can't quite get through. Then a breakaway for Eberle, his shot goes off the post for a second time already in the game. Then it's a 3-on-2 chance. Gio opts not to go for the shot, instead drops it to a following Johansson, who fires off a one-timer top shelf glove side and in to tie up the game at 1, and the Kraken are finally on the board. Then shortly after the Johansson goal, the Kraken will get another chance on the power play, and a minute into that, McCann goes down hard into the boards. He's slow to get up, but does draw the boarding call, and the Kraken will get a minute of 5-on-3 time. But even at 5-on-3 with a 2-man advantage, just like in the first period, the Kraken on the power play just can't seem to get anything going, having a hard time getting into the offensive zone, and once they're there, also struggling to get any pucks to the net. And so, as the Kraken squander the 5-on-3 opportunity, and then also the last minute of the second power play, it's starting to feel like even though the Kraken have controlled the game up until this point, it's still a tie game, and this one could slip away from them as they may have just squandered their golden opportunity to take a sizable lead. Or just a lead at all. Fortunately, as we get back to 5-on-5, the Kraken don't give us too much time to ruminate on that thought, as they are at the very least able to hold the offensive zone coming out of the second power play, and after Gord and Larson go back and forth a couple of times, Larson gets it back across to Gord, who's at the top of the faceoff circle, and he fires off a laser of a one-timer right into that top corner glove side that Johansson hit earlier, and the Kraken do get the 2-1 lead. As apparently, all it took for the Kraken was just not to be on the power play. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Kraken definitely have to get something figured out on the power play, as now, over the last few games, it's still a -1 with that shorthander they gave up against the Blues. But for now, especially since this would be the last power play for the Kraken in this game, that's a problem for future Kraken. Then, coming off the Gord goal to take the lead, it's not the third period, but 17 seconds later, there's another goal. But this time, it's another Seattle Kraken goal, as within 30 seconds of wasting back-to-back power plays, including a 5-on-3, the Kraken have taken the 3-1 lead. Right off the faceoff, the Kraken are into the offensive end. Sheahan gets a shot off on goal that is saved by Bobrovsky, but it brings him out of the net. The rebound goes to Appleton, who takes a shot himself, but it's from a tight angle and goes off the side of the net, where it then bounces up in the air in front of the net. There's limbs and body parts flying all over the place as Bobrovsky's flailing to try to get back to the net to make the save and get any rebound chances. Blackwell's in front of the net trying to flail at it himself, but he makes a heady play, not hitting it with his glove into the net because that wouldn't have counted and would have come off the board. Instead, Bobrovsky actually manages to get to it first, hitting it with his blocker, but it goes off his blocker, off of Blackwell's helmet, and into the goal to give the Kraken the 3-1 lead. It does go to review to make sure Blackwell didn't hit it in with his glove or use a headbutting motion to put it in with his helmet, but it ends up being held up as a good goal, and like I said, Blackwell using his head on this one. Shortly after the Kraken take the 3-1 lead though, the Panthers are going to get their first power play of the game, and unlike the Kraken in their 4 attempts, they make their first try count, as Huberdeau from up in the corner by the blue line takes a shot that Grubauer never sees past a couple of defensemen, and it goes right into the top corner to bring the Panthers back to within 1. And just a minute and a half later, Barkov takes a shot off on the Kraken net that's blocked in front by Gord, but it deflects off his stick, up rainbowing over Grubauer, off the crossbar, and into the net behind him. It's another unfortunate lucky bounce for Florida that ends up in the Kraken net, and just like that, the game is once again tied, now at 3. And the next thing you know, Florida has another power play. And they do everything in their power to make it count and get that 4-3 lead, but thanks to a number of blocked shots and, more importantly and more notably, a number of saves by Grubauer, the Kraken are mercifully able to kill this one off and survive the remaining momentum that the Panthers have through the rest of the second period, and we get to the second intermission going into the third, with the game still tied at 3. Oh, and I suppose it's also worth mentioning that towards the end of the second period, Yanni Gord and Radko Gudas got into a good-natured fight. And what I mean by that, if you're new to the game and were watching it, you probably thought it was a little bit weird how they skated towards the middle of the ice somewhat cordially, then went at each other, throwing punches and wrestling while upright. Eventually it gets broken up by the referees, they give each other a little good game pat, and skate to the locker rooms. And if you are new to the game and did think it was weird, all I can say to that is, well, yeah, but also that's just kind of hockey. Sure, you're going to have plenty of fights where the guys are actually fully fledged pissed off at each other and trying to really cause some harm, but you're also going to have plenty of fights like this one where there's some pushing and shoving to set it off. One of them says, "You want to go?" The other one agrees, and then they have their fight and move on afterwards. Getting back to the game though, 26 seconds into the third, the tie is broken. Though for the first time in a while, just like that second goal in 17 seconds earlier, it's a Kraken goal and a Kraken 4-3 lead. I had you, didn't I? Okay, probably not. I guess you did know from the beginning of this video that the Panthers only scored 3 goals in this game, so this had to be a Kraken goal, but maybe I had you on the one earlier with that second goal in 17 seconds. Either way, it feels good as a Kraken fan to be on the other side of this early first-minute goal for the Kraken, especially in a third period, and especially after it went the other way a game ago against the Blues. The goal comes on a nice passing transition through the neutral zone between Dunn and Wennberg. Wennberg eventually crossing it back the other way to Appleton, who's diving into the offensive zone, fires off a shot and gets it right through the armpit of Bobrovsky on the blocker side and into the back of the net to give the Kraken that 4-3 lead. And for Appleton, it's his first goal in a while and third now on the season. It is, though, just a 1-goal lead with basically the entire third period left, and we saw how quickly the Panthers responded to a 2-goal deficit just a period ago, so yeah, this one doesn't feel over by a long shot. And a couple minutes later, Marchment reminds Kraken fans of just that, as he gets a prime scoring opportunity right in front of the Kraken net that Grubauer somehow comes up with a big save on. The Panthers continue to press hard through the middle of the period, trying everything they can to get this game tied up, even getting away with the high stick on Gord that sends him to the ice, though he would be fine and return to the game. Seattle, though, still down a defenseman, is able to respond to the relentless pressure of one of the best offensive teams in the NHL with a strong forechecking game, not giving them hardly any space to work with, especially in the offensive zone, as they're able to prevent the Florida attack from getting too many grade A scoring chances or high danger scoring chances into the final minutes of the third period. Finally, with 2.5 minutes left, the Panthers have no choice but to pull Bobrovsky to get the 6-on-5 advantage, and for the next 2 minutes after that, they basically don't leave the offensive zone hardly at all, laying on the pressure harder than ever before, getting shot after shot on the Kraken net, with broken sticks littering the ice all over the place. And with how this game had gone up until this point and how 2 of the Florida goals had ended up in the Kraken net, I was a little bit worried that a puck would somehow bounce off of one of those broken sticks and end up in the net past Grubauer. Fortunately, that doesn't happen, though eventually a pass across Grubauer's face does find a wide open Duclair on the other side, who put the first goal of the game into the Kraken net, but Grubauer somehow gets across to make a spectacular game-saving save with the glove arm as Duclair tries to lift it over his pad, is successful, but Grubauer, with the arm diving across to the other side, keeps this one out of the net and saves the game for the Kraken. And finally, after another minute or so of blood pressure raising hockey, Järnkrok is able to win a foot race to a loose puck and skate it all the way down to the other end to put it into the empty net, giving the Kraken the 5-3 lead. With 8 seconds left, Appleton does put a puck over the boards for delay of game and to give the Panthers an 8-second power play, which really, I guess, just pads the Kraken penalty kill stats, as they do hang on to win this game and beat the Florida Panthers 5-3. As far as not just this game, but how the Kraken have now twice been able to beat the NHL's best team by record, now sweeping the season set, well, I think that these last 2 games, the one against the Blues and now this one against the Panthers, are a perfect example of how the Kraken, when they're allowed to play the style of game that they want, can really play with just about any team in the league. But when they're up against a team like the Blues, who are a very physical, shut down, you're not going to get through the neutral zone easily or get set up in the offensive zone type of team, the Kraken really struggle with that type of play style. But with a team like the Panthers, who are happy to play the fast-paced, up and down the ice offensive game, the Kraken are able to use that space and the speed that they have to create some opportunities at the other end of the ice and create some offense of their own. Win, or unfortunately more often lose, it's something that we've seen all season long from the Kraken, When they play teams like the Panthers, who are willing to give them a little bit more space through the neutral zone and into the offensive zone in favor of creating more offensive chances the other way, playing that north to south play style, the Kraken are able to take advantage of that with their forechecking to get set up in the offensive zone or just on rushes to create high danger scoring chances and get the puck in the net themselves. The problem for them has been that unlike teams like the Panthers or Oilers, even though things haven't been going that great for the Oilers lately, or even the Maple Leafs, who the Kraken have yet to play this season, they don't have the firepower offensively to get through teams like the Blues or Penguins or Jets that we saw earlier in the season, or even the Islanders, who the Kraken have coming up on this next road trip, to get through that play style of shutting down the neutral zone and putting up a wall on the blue line, not allowing the Kraken to get into the offensive zone with possession and forcing them to fight along the boards for it. It's something that the Kraken have really struggled to play against, and those games they've pretty consistently lost, while these games where they are able to get their share of offensive opportunities have just come down to usually goaltending and a couple of odd man rushes that also have not tended to favor the Kraken more often than not. Fortunately, at least over the last few games, one of those two things has definitely gotten a lot better for the Kraken and seems to be turning the corner. That being the goaltending, and specifically Philip Grubauer, who now has 3 wins in a row in his last 3 starts and was absolutely fantastic again in this one tonight, shutting down again one of the better offenses in the NHL, only giving up 3 goals on 31 shots, and again, 2 of those goals only end up getting past him thanks to very unfortunate lucky bounces that go over his pad off of Soucy's skate and over him entirely off of the crossbar in off of a block by Gord. Plus, in the third period with the game on the line, he absolutely robbed both Marchment and Duclair at different points, which does earn him the first star in this game, the second star going to Mason Appleton, who also definitely earns it with a goal and an assist in this one. And one guy that doesn't get a star or get on the board whatsoever for the Kraken that I thought was absolutely fantastic and is a very good sign for this team offensively going forward is the new guy in Carson Kuhlman, who I thought played a very good game for Seattle, who continues to play that fast, aggressive, high-energy forechecking game that the Kraken have to some extent been missing since Tanev went out, as we talked about in Kuhlman's last start for Seattle. Aside from that, and hoping that Soucy isn't out too long, as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this game down in the comments section below, or just feel free to party it up after another big win over a very good team. And of course, if you have made it to this point, thank you very much for watching as always. If you did like or enjoy this video as much as you liked or enjoyed the game, there are buttons for that kind of stuff down below that help support the channel. And until next time, stay safe out there, be good to each other, and go Kraken!